The Madison County Board of Education meeting for Thursday, July 15th, 2021 is called into session. Mr. Perkins.
I recommend approval of the agenda dated July 15th, 2021.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of the agenda dated July 15th, 2021. Any changes or discussions? The only addition that I would have is that I'd like to recognize our special guest this evening, Wayne Reynolds, Dr. Wayne Reynolds. He's the District 8 representative to the State Board of Education. He and I have been emailing back and forth today on a couple of topics, and I invited him to come to the meeting, and so he may chime in on some discussions we have as we move forward. So, but welcome, Dr. Reynolds. Thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you. All those in favor of the approving of the agenda, say aye.
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 Informational items, discussion of water tower additions at Moores Mill Intermediate. Mr. Cozart.
Man, it's so nice to be able to see stuff. Even without my glasses.
Good afternoon, board members. We've got Vince Moody here, the engineer with the Madison County Water Department, and we wanted to discuss and bring to the table discussion of a possible water tower located on the Moores Mill school property. And what we'd like to do is present to you, open it up for some questions afterwards. We also have Mr. Dan Evans Jr. here, the school principal. Just to give a little background, Vince approached us a year ago, possibly. Our location meets everything they need. So, but with that, we sent them back out and said, go exhaust all your other opportunities before you come back to ask us for a piece of, a lease or a piece of property to put a water tower. They went out, tried to execute that, and they even hired a real estate agent, I believe, to help as well. And after a year of efforts, they've come back and asked us to consider it. So we've invited him to come out tonight and talk to you as the board members and tell you why, and you can ask questions about it. So I'll, Vince, if you want to come on up. I'll turn it over to Vince, and then we'll answer questions afterwards, okay?
Watch this.
Thank you for your time this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Just a little bit of background about the water department. We support the northern part of the county, the eastern part, and we provide 8 million gallons per day to county residents, and we supplement that with about 2 million gallons per day from Huntsville Utilities. As is, we are basically at capacity in terms of production and storage. And so given all the growth in the county that y'all are well aware of as well, our future demands are going to be greater than our existing capacity, both for storage and production. So with that context, given that Meridianville is one of the focus areas of growth, we're looking to find additional storage. Right now, the Meridianville area and everything east of 231, 431 basically lives off one storage tank, 3 million gallons in Newmarket, and we're looking to double that storage capacity to basically serve the Meridianville area. And the Moores Mill school location, for complicated reasons, that area in the Walker Lane, that's really where we're limited to in terms of location for potential tank, partially because of the way that our water distribution system is set up, and partially because of topography. So we're trying to provide water pressure at 100 PSI. So we need a water tower that's this high to provide that. So we're trying to put the water tower on top of a hill, essentially. And there's only a handful of places with sufficient elevation in the Meridianville area. So given those limitations, we approached various landowners in the Walker Lane area, a lot of farmers, private individuals, and we've just had a tough time talking with Mr. Cozart, Mr. Malone. They've been gracious enough to consider our proposal, and we're trying to accommodate whatever needs that the school board has. So with that being said, do you have any questions about the read-ahead material, our water towers in general? Some of the primary benefits from my perspective, if your power goes out, we can provide water both in terms of supply and pressure, and it also provides water for firefighting purposes. So multi-use, multi-benefit for water towers, you get a lot of bang for your buck. And right now, because of that growth and that one tank that we have in Newmarket, we're really kind of stretched thin in the Meridianville and surrounding areas.
So the water's coming from where?
The water for the tank here would come from our well in Newmarket, and it has a capacity of 10 million gallons per day. We would supplement that a little bit with water from Huntsville Utilities right now, and we're looking for other wells, probably in the Maysville area is what we're targeting.
So what were the reasons, what were your challenges when you went to the other owners? What were their concerns?
I don't know if y'all tried to buy any land here recently. If you have, a family farm, either they are looking to keep that in the family, they're not interested, or they are looking to sell, but they don't really want a water tower at the entrance to their neighborhood because they're worried it might scare off home buyers. And so large parcels of land in the middle of nowhere that we think would be a good opportunity, we haven't had a whole lot of luck there. We've looked at buying, a half-acre parcel with just a house on it, maybe bulldoze the house. But again, people are resistant to that, or for whatever reason, they're not all that interested. So we've really tried to pursue the avenues available to us short of condemnation, which is, it's on the table, but it's really, option of last resort for us. So we're pursuing this one before we go that route and make a difficult decision to condemn.
So does this look like a standard, or is there a new look for a water tower in 2021, or is there?
The latest materials is this. I apologize for this Photoshop job. But the latest
You're not helping right there with that. No, I'm kidding.
The latest technology is what they call a composite tank, and what the composite is a concrete base, so the standpipe is concrete, and then you have a welded steel bowl. And from my perspective, that gives us a few benefits. Construction is relatively straightforward, and more importantly, maintenance and painting cost for the standpipe are low. So normally you paint a welded steel tank every 10 to 12 years, and the surface area on the concrete is pretty significant when it comes to painting. So, pressure washing maybe of the concrete. It's a very sturdy, stable, safe structure given the concrete construction, and that's really kind of the latest in technology that we're looking for.
From start to finish, how long is the construction time frame?
I think it'd be about 1.5 years from groundbreaking to completion. That doesn't necessarily include design, so maybe around 2.5 years start to finish.
And how much land particularly do you need for this water tower? I think it may have been on the slide before.
It is.
We call out 0.7 acres, which is, we really need minimum half acre.
Okay.
And the idea is you have a bowl that's, 100 feet in diameter. You don't want anything underneath the bowl. So really we need that footprint, just in case anything falls off the tower, what have you, for the standpipe.
And the fencing and all that, it's fenced in, what kind of?
We would have it fenced in. We have security requirements from our governing body, the American Water Works Association. So, 6 feet with barbed wire and fencing, signage and security systems, those types of things.
And do we know of any alternate use for that land? I mean, do we have any other plans for it?
I mean, it's a corner lot.
So when we went through this process a couple of years ago, the site that I looked at the most was the site that was least used. It's not used at all. And on that side where it's at is the farthest away from neighborhoods. And behind that, not on our property, Huntsville Utilities will end up building a substation. So you're talking about right in the woods behind it, in that area, that's something, it's going to be not a neighborhood. The land to the north is pretty locked up, so it shouldn't be turned into a neighborhood in the future. So to address some of their concerns, it meets, if you're going to build it on our campus, it meets all the requirements. They can build an access road on the far end of our campus, and it never really bothers us. So for us, it's really wasted land right now, not used.
Okay.
Some of the things that we had discussed
what we're talking about, the making sure it looks nice all the time.
So as far to that point, it'll be the district's responsibility for maintenance? Would that be the water tank?
The water department would take that on. We have 12 tanks in the system right now. We mow those on a regular basis. I think our sites look pretty good, and we would include that here. Any additional concerns you'll have in terms of landscaping, or we would be happy to take care of. And can I mention the Huntsville Utilities property just behind us, which, when I hear that, I think, why don't we put that tank on the Huntsville Utilities land? It's a 9-acre square parcel, and it would work for us. But we've approached them several times about, can we just carve out a little half-acre and put our postage stamp here? You'll never see us. But when Huntsville Utilities purchased that property from whoever the property owner was, there was some type of covenant in their purchase agreement that they have to have some kind of buffer offset from the property boundary, I think, so that substation isn't, this eyesore to the surrounding properties. And so given those constraints that Huntsville Utilities has, they're not going to help us, or they say they can't give us any land there to put a tower on. And we have, a little bit of a big brother, little brother relationship with Huntsville Utilities, but most of the time we help each other out, and their hands are tied here. This would serve the Meridianville area. 3 schools from Madison County Schools are in the area. I don't recall if I included a map in the read ahead, but it's basically from Moore's Mill over to all the way down Grimwood, almost to Pulaski Pike. And so the 3 schools within that area would be served by this water storage tank. In the case of power outage, they would have water supply. Incidental benefits, that directly impacts people in the Meridianville area, but it would also reduce pressure on the rest of the county that are served by the Newmarket well and the other wells. So,
And that would come all the way north to Bob Wade, or would it cover that from Grimwood all the way north back into the city, south, I guess, south back into?
I have a handout. If I didn't give you all a map, let me just.
Okay.
Mr. Curry, I think it was Meridianville Bottom Road. I think it was Meridianville Bottom Road North
Okay.
is what it was.
Okay.
And it would cover Lynn Fanning, Moore's Mill, and Meridianville Middle.
Gotcha.
So that black outline is the service area for the proposed tank. And there are some roads and landmarks on there. Here's the important takeaway from this map, and I don't think y'all have pressed me on this point, but the terrain and elevation is showed in that from blue to white. And given our pressure requirements, we want to operate at a certain elevation. Anything in blue is below the elevation that we need. That would require a 200-foot plus tall tank, and that's just prohibitively expensive. And there are some novel engineering practices you can use to get that height, but it's not what we're looking at. So anything in the green, brown, white type shading, those are the areas that we're interested in. The other important thing on that map is that yellow line. That's our water distribution main that serves the Meridianville area. So the further away we are from that yellow line, the more expensive it is. So an additional mile of 24-inch pipe would basically double the cost of the project. That pipe is really expensive right now. So we want to be in a shaded area, and we want to be close to our yellow pipe, and we're really kind of limited to that Walker Lane, Morris Mill Intermediate School area, given those constraints.
And I realize that at some point, if the board approves of this, that it's some sort of deed or lease agreement would have to be made between us and Madison County Water. So I'm looking at the map, that blue line at top, is that going to have to be an access road that I'm assuming that you'll all be responsible for the cost of, and then everything else?
Right, so I have the little fenced-in area and a kind of a hash mark access road there. The terms of the lease agreement, we would specify the boundaries of that easement or lease boundary, and we would maintain that road. If there are no more questions, thank you for your time. Thank you for your consideration. We're happy to work with the school board. We are enthusiastic about this project, and we want it to be successful for us. Hopefully, it can be beneficial for the school board, members of Madison County. If y'all have any questions, reach out through Mr. Kazort, Mr. Malone. I'm available day or night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Alan, you're up.
Informational item fee. What I wanted to do is just to take some time to go over some of the updates. A lot of our plan has been adjusted, but the main parts of our plan are the same as last year. We just added some components to it that would actually fit in with the times in which we are actually in right now. You'd have to be an educator to be excited about this time of the year. Whenever school's about to open up, there's always an excitement in the air, especially with getting kids in, getting our teachers back, moving in a direction of educating our students at a high level. And it's an exciting time of the year. And this year is an exceptionally exciting time of the year because we came out of a pretty challenging year, a year that was not, I never look at it as a stumbling block. I always look at it as a stepping stone that moves us to a higher level, that gives us more opportunities to serve our students in creative ways. And I feel like we were able to do that last year. Our teachers, our faculty, and our staff, our administrators, our school-wide personnel did an exceptional job. Our parents, exceptionally supportive in working through the processes of COVID last year. Though COVID it's not gone yet, however, we have made some improvements and moving in directions that would allow us to move towards a more normal type of school year, with keeping in mind that there are still some things that we need to have in place to make sure that we continue to keep our students, our faculty, and our staff as safe as we possibly can, because the first priority is for safety. It's to make sure that our students can come to school, feel safe, to make sure that our communities understand that, as the term local parentis in lieu of parent, that's exactly what we're here to do. We're here to make sure that we give our students the absolute very, very best. And I wanted to go over just the changes, the updates to our reopening plan. And we actually call it Ready, Set, Forward, because we're getting ready and we're set and we're moving forward. We're moving forward with the mindset of continuing high levels of learning for all of our students, to promote educational excellence as we always have, and to do those things that are necessary to facilitate that taking place. We want our students in our buildings. We want our students learning. We want our students growing. And so our hashtag for this year is hashtag Ready, Set, Forward as well. So with that, I just want to just kind of go over just some highlights of some adjustments that we have in the plan. One of the things I did want to just make sure that we understood is that safety and security is a high point for us, and we're always talking about it and focusing on it because students have to be safe in order to make sure that they're actually learning. And this school year, when we look at the plan moving forward, we've made some adjustments, and one of the major adjustments that we've made is adding a level 0. And I'll get into that a little bit more as we go on. But what I wanted to make sure that everyone understood that this year we will continue to do the things that we've done last year in terms of maintaining sanitation, making sure that we're cleaning and making sure that our classrooms, our buses, our school spaces are sanitized, are clean for our students, making sure that they come into an environment that is a safe environment in terms of our sanitation processes and things of that nature. In this plan, we're at level 0. If you look on the screen, you'll see that we had 3 levels. We had level 1, we had level 2, and we had level 3 for last year. We added a level 0. And at level 0, we have traditional learning, students in the classroom, but we made masks optional. And so at level 0, masks will be optional. And that just simply means that if anyone feels like they should have a mask or they want to wear a mask, faculty, staff, students, visitors, they can wear a mask within our building. So, but then those who do not don't have to. So that's at level 0. Level 1, there's a change in level 1. Originally, last year's plan, at level 1, masks were mandatory even at level 1. Well, this year, masks are optional at level 1, but may be required if the environment and if the guidance that we get from health professionals say that it needs to move in that direction. But our goal is to continue to move forward with optional masking, but making sure that we're cognizant of the environment and the times that we're living in. And then, of course, level 2 and level 3. Level 2 is hybrid learning. That's the same as last year. And then level 3 is remote learning. I do want to make sure that we clearly understand, just like last year, but even more so this year, when you look at our levels are specific, can be specific to a classroom. It could be specific to a particular school. It could be several schools. However, the goal is to look at and make the plans and implement these levels at the smallest level, instead of not necessarily looking at implementing it for the entire school district. We move in that direction like last year if we need to. However, the goal and the focus is to look at specific areas, specific classrooms, and moving to the different levels based on that particular classroom. Just some plan highlights. Again, I talked about it a little bit just a minute ago. If you look at the highlights, face masks are optional at level 0, with some optional options too at level 1. Madison County will report any known positive or suspected positive COVID cases to the Alabama Department of Health. So all suspected and all positive cases will be submitted to the Alabama Department of Health. That's just a process, a guideline that we have to follow. And when we do that, we will notify any student or staff. We'll notify parents by letter regarding any close contact, any positive cases, and then we will, the Alabama Department of Health will contact parents, they'll contact staff directly who are affected by either a quarantine or by a positive case. Now, just to make sure that we are clear, and we talked about this prior, traditional learning, we will have traditional face-to-face learning, but the options, like we had last year, we will not have. So we had school-based virtual last year. This year, we'll have a virtual option for grades 4 through 12. So that means 4th grade through 12th grade will have a virtual option. That virtual option is with our Madison County Virtual Academy. And so what this means is, because our Madison County Virtual Academy is a standalone school, parents can enroll their students, 4th grade through 12th grade, in that particular school. That's the virtual option that we have. For grades pre-K through 3, there is no virtual option. We want them face-to-face. We want to make sure that we have them in front of us to actually go through the learning process and give them the needed services that they actually have, that they actually need. So just wanted to make that clear. 4 through 12 is our virtual option with Madison County Virtual Academy, but there is no virtual option for pre-K through 3rd grade. And I know there's a lot of talk we had last year about How do you determine the levels and things of that nature? Well, we're determining them the exact same way because it's a fluid environment and things, change. But we will look at the number of percentages, the number and/or percentages of cases within our district, within individual schools, within individual classrooms to make determinations. So a classroom could be one school could be at level 1, while another school could be at level 0, based on the numbers, based on the percentages that might be within that particular school. We will also look at faculty and staff numbers and percentages, staff numbers that are quarantined due to COVID within an individual school, classroom by classroom, system-wide. And then we will actually make sure that we are, just as we've done in the past, pull recommendations or accept those recommendations from the Department of Health, Department of Public Health, and the Alabama Department of Education. So just to kind of touch on one of the most important factors in working through these processes is the home-school relationship. One of the things that we required last year was, for parents at home to continue to monitor their students, their children, and if they see any symptoms or anything that would give pause, that they would notify school, that would notify our staff and stay home, because we don't want anyone coming to school if they're sick. We want them there. We want everyone in our buildings, but we want to make sure that we keep an environment that is healthy and clean as well. And then, of course, school personnel will continue, like we did last year, in terms of monitoring through visual monitoring. There may be some instances where there may be some temperature checks and things of that nature, but we want to make sure that we understand that home-school relationship, partnership, will help continue to move us in a position where we are continuing to have traditional face-to-face learning. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to actually highlight level 0 because that's the big change for this school year. Again, level 0, masks are optional. We're going to continue to maintain communication with local and state health officials at level 0. We're going to follow all preventative and prevention guidelines at level 0. We're going to continue to maintain the protocols if students or staff have symptoms and they're ill. We're going to continue to follow those protocols, and we're going to continue to maintain the sanitation processes even at level 0. So the sanitation processes and keeping everything clean, those processes, we're not doing away with those whatsoever. Schools are required to do the following. They're constantly providing hand sanitizer, and to speak to hand sanitizer, we have enough hand sanitizer to bathe every student in our district multiple times. We have truckloads of hand sanitizer that we can, that we have. So we have plenty of it. We won't run out. I can put it to you like that. So it's readily available, providing and making sure that we have soap and paper towels and just those things that facilitate a clean and safe environment. The next facet that we're looking at is supporting teaching and learning. And these are the guidelines at level 0. So, of course, providing hand sanitizer for students and staff, constantly cleaning and making sure that those high touched areas and surfaces are cleaned. Even at level 0, master schedules are created to create balances in the classroom so that classrooms are not overloaded to the extent that's possible within our schools. And then, of course, and we talked about this, a virtual option through our Madison County Virtual Academy for grades 4 through 12. Looking at the guidelines for transporting students, providing hand sanitizer on buses for bus drivers, making sure that those those areas are clean and disinfected, that frequently touched areas in the buses are maintained on a daily basis. We have the devices that we actually spray and clean the buses, and even within our buildings. That will continue. Buses will be continued to be aired out when they're not in use. We will require assigned seats to assist with contact tracing. So every bus will have assigned seats so that we can, if there is a case, we can actually ADPH can do the contact tracing the way that it needs to be done. Also, students who are family members will be allowed to sit together on the buses, just so that we can kind of keep them together as they travel to schools. Parents, we're still asking them to do their wellness checks with their students before they leave home in the morning, before they get on the buses, that they will be monitoring their students as well. Because again, it's a partnership. We're working together to make sure that we give our students the best possible opportunity to stay in school sickness-free. And then, of course, our employees at level 0 will continue to self-screen for symptoms. And if there are symptoms, then they will act accordingly as well. And again, our schools will be sanitized on a daily basis. We have our sanitation devices, our fogging machines that we go through and fog classrooms and high-touched and high-traveled areas. So we want to make sure that those things stay in place as well. The next guidelines for entering and exiting buildings, again, can't say it enough. Hand washing, sanitizing, extremely important. Making sure that we have established, and there will be established, each school will have established protocols for visitors when they're entering in and out the buildings. And then the next two bullets, parents conducting wellness checks, and then employee screenings. That's the same in each level. Serving meals, and this is, has to do with cafeterias. Making sure that students are allowed to wash their hands before they go to the cafeteria. Sanitizing before meals and things of that nature. Cafeterias will be constantly cleaned and disinfected. High-touch areas will be cleaned on a daily basis, even in between students as they travel in and out the cafeteria. So those protocols will actually stay in place as well, even at level 1. And then when students are transitioning, hallways, high-touched areas, making sure that they stay clean, even at level 0. Conducting large group gatherings, and these large group gatherings, we're referring to groups that's 50 or more. Especially with our athletic events, currently we are following protocols and guidelines that's set out by the Alabama High School Athletic Association. And right now, at this present time, based on different guidelines, there are really no restrictions in place. However, at our sporting events, we'll still be doing the things that we need to do in terms of sanitizing our facilities to make sure that they're as safe as possible. And so these, I want to make sure that we don't miss this. These are the revised protocols for students and staff. And these 4 bullets are just things that I wanted to make sure that we have, that we understand, that we're doing. So I'm just going to I'm going to read these because I don't want us to miss them. When there is a positive case, a COVID case identified, the nurse will submit the information, including close contacts to ADPH. So that information is submitted to ADPH. Madison County, we will send out a COVID-19 notification letter that will be signed by the principal, and it will be sent out by the school nurse to all those identified to be within 6 feet protocols. Health services, and this is a change, health services will not instruct individuals to quarantine, but it will be the responsibility of ADPH for any quarantine-related positive cases. So ADPH will be in charge of making sure that any quarantining that takes place through them. We will be notifying them, letting them know that we have a positive case and giving them the information for contact tracing, and then they will actually follow up and do the quarantining themselves. The positive case can return, if an individual or student has a positive case, they can return based on a physician release, and then guidance from ADPH, or a 10-day quarantine from the first 10 days from their first symptom. So let me kind of go over that again. So a positive case can return upon physician release, guidance from ADPH, and or after a 10-day quarantine from the first symptoms, okay? So that's where we are with that. Those are the revised protocols. So currently, based on where we are and information that we've received and information that we have, and let me move this a little further. I'm actually working off of 2 devices, there and here. I can see this better. Based on where we are right now, we will be starting school at level 0. So when August the 4th comes, we will be at level 0. And just some additional information that I wanted to reiterate and wanted to make sure that we are, that we understand. Our sanitizing will be daily. Classrooms will be sanitized daily. Buses will be sanitized daily. All public spaces will be sanitized daily. That's a non-negotiable. Those are things that we will do every single day to make sure that we keep a clean, safe environment. We are currently permitting field trips within our district. Cafeterias will be open for student dining, and of course, schools will work through how that will look in each individual school, because they're all configured a little bit differently in different sizes. And then again, there'll be no athletic or extracurricular restrictions based on athletic-wise, based on Alabama High School Athletic Association. Those are the large changes that we've actually made in updating our COVID plan, or our plan for reopening school. Wanted to make sure that we all were aware of those things, and that parents understood what we're doing, and that we are, even though we have the level 0, which masks are optional, we're still maintaining sanitized practices for our students. So that's where we are. Any questions?
I have a question. Mr. Perkins, do we still have this, are the classrooms still spaced out as much as possible to reduce quarantine exposure? Or are we pretty much back to a standard configuration?
Well, schools are, we are actually still, as far as we possibly can, maintaining as great of a distance as we possibly can.
So we have petitions out and all that stuff.
Those are optional. If we need to do those, we still have some available.
So, say we have a situation where we go into a level 3 in a classroom.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a homeschool virtual option. What happens if those kids have to go home? How do they get their instruction at that point?
Okay. So if that happens, and that's a good point, a good question. So if an entire classroom has to go on quarantine, there is a virtual option in that classroom with that particular teacher. That teacher still has those particular students. Now we do have to realize and recognize that each school or grade level configuration is a little bit different. So it may look different in different grade levels and grade configurations. But if you have an entire class, the opportunity for a virtual option for that teacher in that class can go virtual.
So say, what if you even have half? Like, what do those groups of kids do, and you have the other half still in the class? Is there going to be a teacher still at the school that kind of manages that, or is it the teacher will do virtual and the traditional instruction?
So the one thing that we are trying to move away from, because of the toughness of it, and it's just not a practical way, is a teacher doing both at the exact same time. There, depending on the class, depending on the grade level, it'll look a little bit different. For instance, there are opportunities for streaming. I know Mr. Evans, he actually streamed a lot of his classes during COVID, and those kids who were not in the class still got to actually view the class. There were individual schools that actually created opportunities for students to actually go on their lines and sites and have the information that was already presented in a format, Canvas or Google Classroom or something of that nature, schools POP, were able to do that. So a lot of it's going to depend on classroom to classroom, school to
And
school,
school to-
and
so-
school to school.
So each school has their own blueprint on what they do in the event that this happens. It's not like a district, this is what you do. Each, Mr. Evans' school will have a different setup than, Mr. Whitlow or whatever.
That is the potential based off of what they're able to do in the capacity within that school.
But they,
That kind of, Mr. Solly, if you can weigh in, that's the way that, yeah.
but they know that's a possibility.
Absolutely.
Not, hopefully not, but that's a possibility, and they.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep, it is.
okay.
Ellen, you and I,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Brian. Can you go to this, oh, you came off this slide. Which one? Go to the second slide that you were working on.
Hey, Austin, can you pull that presentation back up?
There you go.
Slide number 2, I can go back there.
So you and I discussed the idea, well, you and I discussed in a conversation, we talked about, you thought about doing a level 1A and a level 1B.
So, okay, so for level 1, it's potentially that way. But the way level 1 is set up is level 1 has the potential of being optional math. Let me put it this way. Level 1 has optional math. However, if there is a need to have math, we can implement math at level 1.
Okay, so you're not going to define it with an A or a B, you're just going to.
No, I'm not going to define it with
Okay,
an A or B. It'll be
That's fine.
based on the situation and
That's fine.
circumstances, yeah.
Okay.
So is school PLP, I mean, is it the same as last year, the use of it, or are we scaling that back?
I don't think the state is, we're not,
We will not use schools PLP again this year. We have purchased Odyssey Ware to serve grades 4 through 6, and Annuity is a new product for us this year that will serve grades 7 through 12. So, and all of our middle and high schools will have access to Annuity. So not just virtual school, but all of our schools will have access to that if they need it, both for reasons of quarantine if they needed it, or for credit recovery, or, a lot of reasons that they can use it in grades 7 through 12. And, but for 4-6, just our virtual academy will have access to Odyssey Ware for that 4-6 curriculum.
Mr. Reynolds, would you can motion, you may have something you want to say on that.
Commented about the State Department of Education. I commend Superintendent Perkins and the board for the plan you have, and it's very comprehensive. And Superintendent Perkins and we received an email that the state superintendent wrote at 7:30 p.m. Friday. You remember getting that? And he referenced the CDC, Center for Disease Control Guidelines, and what's happening in the state. And when our board met Tuesday, I raised a number of issues and asked for guidance from the state health officer, Dr. Harris. And of course, I'm kind of a unique experience. I'm also a registered nurse, and at one time was the administrator for the health department in Madison County. So I know the processes, and I know the responsibilities we, as educators, the state board, are looking to our ADPH to implement. We are waiting on some additional clarification from Dr. Harris, because he was quoted in Dr. Mackey's letter in a position he took several weeks ago, that the recent CDC guidelines are difficult at best. I think Mr. Perkins, Superintendent Perkins would agree. But we have to be prepared for what's happening. The State Department of Education does not intend and should not provide the overriding and obtrusive guidance. I think you have a great plan, and I hope you can stay at level 0. One of the other realities that we face is Alabama has the lowest immunization rate in the nation. And at one time, Madison County was high level, Limestone County is, I think Jackson County is, and it's a fluid situation. The new concept, the new relationship, the new disease is the Delta variant. And that is proven to be, from the health standards, and I get those emails too, a very difficult situation. And we don't want it to come in our schools. But the advantage that Superintendent Perkins and you have now is you have more advanced warning than when we actually closed schools down at the end of the school year. And then all of last year, we faced these issues. But I think you have a great plan, and I'm waiting on, and when that happens, Superintendent Perkins and you all will get what Dr. Harris is going to actually interpret the CDC guidelines for us as educators. And in addition to that, you probably realize that our Attorney General, the Attorney General Marshall, wrote the CDCs with some requests that he was making relative to myocarditis and some other instances. And as a state superintendent, a state school board member rather, this Freudian, that I've gotten more comments about it, and everybody includes his letter. I don't know if you've seen it, but I'll make sure you get it, President Weiss. But he asked CDC for certain things, and now I want him to respond legally where we stand, Alabama Department of Public Health, and of course the Alabama High School Athletic Association, where we stand in context of CDC, because we can't ignore it. If we ignore it, we have certain liabilities. If we follow it, we're going to get kicked around pretty significant, because what CDC guidelines said, and if you correct me if I'm wrong, that every child who is not immunized wears a mask and maintains at least a 3-foot distance. Every child, not optional, every child. And that every employee that aren't immunized wears a mask and maintains social distance. Those will be very difficult things to implement. Difficult to ignore, difficult to implement. And I, as a board member, have asked, and you probably heard me say that, I want I emailed this, I texted the state superintendent today, and he hasn't heard yet from Dr. Harris. But I want to hear from Dr. Harris, and I want to hear from the Attorney General to clarify both our medical and legal requirements. And I think you have a great plan. I hope nothing goes well, but I think that we all know, and you raised some questions about all these differentials. If it can happen bad, it's probably going to happen to some of us. And I don't know where to go, except I know that State Board and your board member, and I'm it's such a pleasure to be able to represent such a fine group, does not intend to be intrusive. And the good news is we have a large funds in ESSA funds, and you'll soon be preparing your level 3 ESSA fund request to accommodate some of the things that are in your proposal. And I know you took that into consideration in knowing how to pay for it, because I know board members, if you wonder how you're going to pay for these things, Superintendent Perkins is fortunate. We are all fortunate that money's forthcoming. Thank you. I would answer any questions you have of me. I consider it a pleasure just to be here.
Appreciate you, Mr. Reynolds, for coming in. Thank you very much for being here this evening. Brian, go ahead. You had some other questions, I think.
My question was going to be that the plan will be strictly school by school from now on, right? It won't be like a county-wide, like if New Hope has a large amount of sickness, we don't have to shut down Sparkman. I mean, you're going to go by school now, right?
That's the plan. Now, just like last year, we did just that. In the beginning, of course, district-wide, the information that we had, we went remote starting out, but from that point forward, we went school by school based on the numbers at each one of the schools. So the goal is to stay classroom by classroom, building by building, as we make the decisions to move from level to level. So our district holistically can be at level 0 while we may have a school at level 2, or a classroom at level 2, or a classroom at level 3. That's the potential of it. But then it still offers the opportunity, if things are bad holistically, then we can move that way as well. But the goal is classroom by classroom, school by school.
What about the IT distribution? Are we going to wait to be prepared for levels 2 and 3, or do we go ahead?
So currently, our schools, and they've learned and have done a tremendous job of being able to distribute devices very, very quickly, and each school has a plan of distribution for getting devices to students. We have one-to-one access for our students, meaning that every student has access to a device, and schools have plans at each individual schools to be able to distribute those devices.
Any other questions or comments? Well, I'll echo Mr. Reynolds' comments. I think the plan we have is a solid plan, and I appreciate your work and the staff's work on putting it together, and let's cross our fingers and move forward smartly. So,
Okay.
thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Administrative items. Item A, I recommend approval of amendments to the 2021, 2022, and 2022, 2023 school calendar as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation and approval of amendments to the 2021, 2022, and the 2022, 2023 school calendar as submitted. Any discussion or questions?
What changed on it? Just that one day?
No, basically, sir, on 21, 22, there was some days that changed as far as institute and staff development, so those were updated. But with the federal holiday of Juneteenth, we've added that in there. It's being recognized on June 17th, which is the Friday before. And our current schedule is such that that's one of those Fridays where we do our 410s. It's one of the Fridays that we have our 410s. So we're recognizing it, and the school's pretty much already closed down for that, so we'll recognize it there. And then we added the 2 half-days for the last 2 days of school, which is testing days. So we identified them by the proper color. So that's 21, 22. On 22, 23, it was just adding the Juneteenth on June 19th. And for that, it had 2 effects. Our 240, so we'll be closed on that Monday. So our 240-day employees will now work on December the 20th, where that's where their fall breaks, or their winter break started. They'll be coming in and working on the 20th, and it also affected our 222-day employees. And so they will work on the weather day, where typically it's just the 240s that work that. So our 222s and our 240s will work on April the 7th. And in lieu of that, they'll have the June 19th off in celebration of Juneteenth. So that's the only changes to 22 and 23.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, discussion? If there are none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Item B, I recommend approval of the contract revisions between Madison County Schools and the Enrichment Center for additional school-based therapists as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation and approval of contract revisions between Madison County Schools and the Enrichment Center for additional school-based therapists as submitted. Any discussion? Any questions? If there are none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Item C, I recommend approval of the renewal contract for the Rhythm app as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation and approval of the renewal contract for the Rhythm app as submitted. Any questions or discussion?
How effective is this?
Dr. Ballard, you want to talk about the effectiveness of the Rhythm app? I know your department have done a lot of work with it.
Yes, we implemented the Rhythm app in January during a time when we were still trying to assess where our students were socially and emotionally. It's been a very effective tool for us. To give you an indicator, it's a 90-second assessment that the students take, just a personal self-assessment every day, which provides indicators such as if a student is hungry. So our social workers have been able to work with families if that has been a need. If there is some type of ongoing concern. So for instance, there have been students who've expressed concerns about maybe different situations, and our counselors have been able to come alongside of them to support. So it's been a tool that we may not have been able to gather that type of information, but through this app, through their responses, we're able to better assess the needs and resources that some of our students may have. It's been a very effective tool in our schools.
Do you know, Dr. Ballard, how many of our students are actually using the app on a continuous basis?
I don't have the data in front of me, but we have a good number of our students are actively participating. And if this is approved this evening, then the goal is for every student to have access. It starts with kindergarten through 12th grade, so all students will have access to the app.
Does it come on their phone, or how do they, or through email, or how do they even know?
So, sure, on their devices, they have access. They just click on the app there, and it asks a few questions. At our elementary level, the teacher may prompt them or give them an opportunity to complete that. At the secondary level, they will have opportunities as well, but they can access it through their phone or their school device.
Is it a free app?
Well, a part of the contract, it's a part of our contract agreement through that payment there, but it's free to our students per our payment with the contract.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? If there are none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Item D, I recommend approval of the contracts for services as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation and approval of contracts for services as submitted. Are there any questions? Karen's here tonight. She can help us with that if necessary. If there are no questions or comments, all those in favor say aye.
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 Item E, I recommend approval of the personnel items and addendum as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation and approval of personnel items and addendum as submitted. Any questions? Ken, in general, how is the hiring process going? Pretty good? Okay. All right. Any other questions? If there are none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Item F, I recommend approval of the supplemental contracts and the discontinued contracts as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation and approval of supplemental contracts and discontinued contracts as submitted. Any questions? If there are none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 thinking it. Didn't say it.
Okay, that takes care of our administrative business for the evening. Dr. Minsky had asked me earlier about changing the time for our next two meetings. The next one is the 26th of July. That's a Monday, if I'm right? And then the 3rd of August, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's a Tuesday. He'd like to do those in the morning, if possible, to kind of facilitate some hiring and some other things, particularly the one on the 3rd of August, since the next day is the first day of school. So that would allow those that we approve to begin their work on the next day.
Yeah, the thought process was to keep a pretty light agenda for those 2 days, but the 26th, if we're able to hire people that morning, they're actually able to get into the school, see their room before they actually have to officially start on the 27th. For that same reason, the 3rd is do it the morning of the 3rd. We could, if we have to hire teachers last minute, we're able to hire them, let them give an opportunity to get into their classroom, start getting prepped as students would be arriving the next day. So again, time is whatever works for you in the morning, board members, but by doing that, that would allow us to get these people in and get them started.
Is that a problem? Would we be able to get a quorum for, Brian, I know that you sometimes are unable to be here for the early morning sessions, but.
I would have to check, but I can see.
Okay. But I think we can at least have a quorum.
It works for me.
Works for me.
Not happily, but
All you need is 3.
Gets you into the practice of getting, Andrew up for.
I don't want to be in that practice.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to do that. But I will.
All right. So go ahead, Mark, and schedule those for 7:30 on those 2
7:30.
days.
Yes, sir. We'll change it.
That's AM, correct?
That is
Yes.
correct.
Double checking.
A of M.
I'll be happy to give you a call, Ms. Bates.
I can go around the table and ask if anyone's got anything good for the board. I can tell you that I'm already starting to see things ramp up at our schools and driving around. I'm seeing the football teams out practicing. I'm seeing the band out practice. It was fun today. Mojo from WZYP apparently does a drive-by ice cream delivery to certain organizations, groups, people that call in. And he stopped this afternoon or this morning, I guess, and handed out ice cream cones to some of the members of the Sparkman High School marching band that were out there practicing in the heat this morning. So that's kind of cool that he did that. It was actually on his Facebook feed. He was actually doing a live thing. So got the kids on feed and some of the instructors. But it's good to see everybody starting to get back into the groove of things, and hopefully we can continue down the path that we have planned for our Ready, Set, Forward, and start the school year off right and on the positive foot. So, anything else from any of the other board members? Anything else? Oh, yeah, okay, go ahead.
I did want to just show my appreciation to all of our schools. Our summer learning was extremely successful. Our schools did a fantastic, phenomenal job of servicing our students, giving them additional opportunities to grow and develop, learn at high levels. Our teachers, our bus drivers, our faculty and staff members, our principals did a phenomenal job of putting those in place. Our instruction department supporting summer learning. It was a huge success this summer. So I did want to just make sure I put that out there.
Thank you. Yep. All right. And again, to Mr. Reynolds, thank you for coming in this evening and joining us, and thank you for the update that you provided us as well. And look forward. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So thank you very much, and we look forward to any updates that you can provide Mr. Perkins with regards to what comes out of the Alabama Department of Public Health and anywhere else. So thank you very much. All right. If there's no other questions or comments or discussion, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you. Good night.